So, Tom Parker Bowles had already eagerly reached for the thick envelope resting on the polished mahogany table when King Charles uttered the 6 devastating words that completely altered the trajectory of the British monarchy forever. "That is not addressed to you." Tom's hand stopped dead in midair. Queen Camilla looked at her husband in absolute, utterly paralyzed shock. Prince William simply looked down at the table with a terrifyingly icy stare. But Prince Edward did not move a muscle, because he already knew exactly whose name was secretly written inside that folder. The ultimate royal betrayal had officially begun. Before we dive completely into the shocking details of this unprecedented midnight confrontation inside Windsor Castle, if you genuinely love deep dives into the secret legal maneuvers and hidden power struggles of the royal family, make sure you hit that subscribe button to Palace Files right now. We constantly break down the highly classified palace conflicts that the mainstream media absolutely refuses to touch, and you do not want to miss the next major update. Now let us go back to the exact moment King Charles aggressively removed the crossed-out paragraph of power from the highly guarded estate documents. The truly strange part of this incredibly tense, highly secure gathering inside the ancient stone walls of Windsor Castle was not that King Charles had finally made a definitive, unbreakable decision regarding the future of the royal estate. Everyone sitting inside that suffocating, historically significant room already knew a monumental constitutional decision was rapidly approaching. The utterly devastating part was exactly what Charles had violently removed just minutes before putting his royal ink on the final parchment. It was one single paragraph consisting of 7 heavily guarded lines of legal text, acting as a secret, hollow, long-standing backroom promise. Queen Camilla's family had reportedly spent years foolishly believing that this specific, carefully worded paragraph would permanently protect their elevated, highly privileged place inside the inner royal circle long after Charles was eventually gone. Now it had completely and unceremoniously vanished. There was no polite diplomatic explanation offered by the king. There was absolutely no soft, alternative replacement negotiated by the palace lawyers. There was just a thick, incredibly aggressive black line drawn violently through the lavish future they genuinely thought had already been unconditionally secured. But that stunning erasure was only the very first shock of the tense evening. Because when King Charles finally and slowly pushed the heavy legal envelope across the highly polished table, it absolutely did not stop in front of the direct heir, Prince William. It certainly did not stop in front of a breathless, anticipating Camilla. Instead, it stopped squarely and deliberately in front of the perpetually overlooked quiet brother, Prince Edward. Suddenly, the cold, terrifying, and absolute reality of the dire situation crashed down heavily upon Camilla. She finally understood with absolute clarity that this private, incredibly high-stakes family meeting was absolutely not about keeping the blended, complicated family together in harmony. It was exclusively about ruthlessly deciding exactly who would still legally belong when King Charles could no longer politically shield them from the established institution. The sprawling room had been meticulously prepared with an almost uncomfortable, chilling, and clinical precision. 4 heavy crystal glasses of chilled water were placed perfectly across the surface. A red leather official government document box sat imposingly in the exact center of the table. 2 severe, highly experienced palace lawyers were seated completely silently against the far stone wall, officially observing. Princess Anne sat very closely beside the roaring fireplace, remaining completely and utterly silent. Anne sat with a rigidly straight back, her sharp, calculating eyes watching every single micro-movement occurring in the heavy room. Camilla had confidently entered the historic room earlier, genuinely believing this was simply just another standard, highly routine discussion regarding estate logistics. She wrongly thought it was just another casual round of private, highly flexible legal negotiations that could easily and smoothly be softened later over an expensive glass of wine at private dinner. But Princess Anne had absolutely not come to Windsor Castle for a casual dinner. Prince William had deliberately and strategically not brought Princess Catherine along. And Prince Edward had arrived at the imposing castle entirely alone, without his wife Sophie. That glaring, highly unusual absence of supportive spouses should have undeniably been Camilla's absolute first blaring warning siren of the evening. King Charles looked deeply, profoundly, and historically tired, yet there was absolutely nothing uncertain, hesitant, or wavering in his firm, commanding voice. The thick stack of estate papers resting directly in front of him had already been aggressively marked with his final, unbreakable intent. His ceremonial royal signature ribbon was placed exactly beside the final, legally binding page of the highly contested property trust. Even the silent, observing legal witnesses had been carefully, deliberately, and surgically chosen by the king himself. The fierce, unspoken, and highly toxic argument over the family assets was completely and absolutely over before Queen Camilla even had the physical chance to sit down in her designated chair. She simply did not know the catastrophic truth yet. The blank folder of ultimate humiliation was about to be revealed. Tom Parker Bowles had desperately tried to laugh out loud just to ease the incredibly heavy, suffocating tension permeating the air in the room. His brief laugh was highly nervous and echoed. It bounced awkwardly off the cold stone walls of the castle. "So, this is all very formal and serious," he had casually said, desperately trying to lighten the incredibly dark, oppressive mood. Absolutely nobody responded to his poorly timed joke. The resulting silence was overwhelmingly brutal and deeply humiliating for him. Then, one of the serious, unsmiling palace lawyers stepped forward deliberately, slowly opened the heavy red leather official box, and methodically took out 3 incredibly thick folders, explicitly marked as highly confidential. The very first folder had Prince William's name printed in bold, commanding, and highly visible black ink. The second, equally thick folder was explicitly designated for Prince Edward. The third folder, however, was completely and utterly blank. Camilla stared intensely at the blank folder for much longer than anyone in the room expected. In the highly symbolic royal court, a deliberately blank cover absolutely did not mean the hidden contents were trivial or unimportant. It explicitly meant that someone's name had been aggressively and intentionally removed at the very last possible moment, but whose specific name was actually missing. King Charles started the formal proceedings directly with Prince William. This specific order made perfect sense to everyone. William was the direct, undisputed heir, the guaranteed future king, and would eventually control the monarchy's vast, unimaginable wealth. However, Charles did not actually give him the main, highly contested property document. Instead, he simply handed William a single, incredibly thin page. This brief page firmly confirmed that the final binding estate arrangement would absolutely not interfere with the sacred line of succession or legally disrupt any royal property that would automatically pass to the next reigning monarch. That was exactly it. William read the brief document once, his stoic face remaining completely unreadable, calm, and utterly devoid of emotion. He folded it sharply and placed it carefully beside his crystal glass. He absolutely did not look surprised, nor did he ask any clarifying questions. This stoic reaction explicitly meant he had already seen the highly confidential document long before this meeting. Camilla acutely noticed this subtle detail, and so did a suddenly, visibly pale Tom. Edward remained completely still, quiet, and highly observant. Charles then slowly reached for the mysterious blank folder. For a fleeting moment, Camilla felt her tense shoulders relax. She thought maybe the blank folder was hers. Perhaps the missing, omitted name was a minor change. Perhaps the palace lawyers made a clerical error, but Charles absolutely did not hand it to her. Instead, he slowly opened it himself, his aging hands shaking slightly under the immense pressure. Inside was absolutely not a standard legal contract. It was a deeply personal, handwritten note from the late, highly revered Queen Elizabeth. It was a solemn, dying request, absolutely not a formal, legally binding will. It specifically related to one of the royal family's most private, heavily guarded legacies, a very secluded place deeply connected to the quiet, hidden years Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip spent completely together. It was completely away from public life. Charles read aloud the final, incredibly powerful, and highly emotional sentence. "Keep it with the child who asks for the least but inevitably remembers the most." Camilla's previously confident, highly assured expression instantly turned to absolute fear. Tom looked worriedly and frantically at Prince William, who was already looking directly and respectfully at Prince Edward, acknowledging the hidden royal inheritance. Wait, Prince Edward? That specific brother who the general public and the press so often completely forget. The extremely quiet one who has spent countless years deliberately staying in the very distant background. While others desperately get attention, he remains completely silent. The brother whose incredibly stable, drama-free marriage has firmly held up while the rest of the royal family constantly face highly public, deeply embarrassing scandals. Yes, that exact Edward. Charles slowly closed his late mother's highly emotional handwritten note. Then he finally shared what the family had been secretly, bitterly fighting over for several long, exhausting months. It absolutely wasn't a new, shiny crown or a grand, highly visible public title. It was absolute, undeniable control. Control over a highly private royal home, its large, expansive grounds, and Philip's documents. Prince Philip's highly sensitive, incredibly personal documents were at stake. This massive inheritance included several highly valuable, historically significant family items that had absolutely never been formally added to the official royal collection, alongside an incredibly well-funded private trust specifically set up to protect them. Edward could absolutely never commercialize or sell the historic property, legally transfer it, or freely pass it on as standard inheritance to his private children. But while Edward was drawing breath and alive, absolutely no one could ever legally take it away from him without Prince William's explicit, formal, and legally binding written approval. Camilla leaned aggressively forward over the table, her constantly supportive, highly curated wife facade completely slipped away. "And where exactly does that leave us?" she demanded, asking the burning question. That specific word was the ultimate fatal mistake. She absolutely didn't say me. She explicitly and intentionally said us. King Charles stared intensely at her for several long, incredibly heavy seconds before answering in a completely flat, emotionless voice, with exactly what is already yours. That one single, incredibly harsh sentence hit significantly harder than any amount of loud shouting ever could. Camilla already possessed her very own private property. She had her own family and incredibly lucrative financial arrangements. But she clearly, undeniably expected something significantly more from this extremely private meeting. She desperately wanted something historically royal that would undoubtedly last long after King Charles was eventually gone. Something highly secure that absolutely wouldn't be forcefully taken from her ambitious family when Prince William officially became the reigning king. Tom, visibly feeling the crushing pressure, finally asked the highly uncomfortable question everyone else completely avoided. "Wasn't there explicitly supposed to be continued, guaranteed family access?" he asked, his anxious voice trembling slightly in the quiet room. Charles paused. Princess Anne finally spoke up. "There was a highly preliminary proposal," she sharply said, her commanding voice incredibly cold. "A proposal, absolutely not a binding promise." That one single word completely changed absolutely everything in the room. Tom looked incredibly anxiously at Charles. Charles slowly lowered his tired eyes to the mahogany table, completely unable to directly meet Tom's frantic gaze. This was the exact, highly devastating moment Camilla fully understood the incredibly painful, absolute truth. Her highly ambitious family hadn't simply made these grand, sweeping expectations up out of nowhere. King Charles had allowed the dangerous expectation to grow. He may have even quietly encouraged it, but he absolutely never finished the formal legal paperwork. For several long years, vague, undocumented reassurances had been casually shared in highly private chats. Empty promises of continuous holiday access and a secure place for Camilla's eager children and grandchildren during prestigious family events. There was absolutely nothing clear enough for palace lawyers to strictly enforce, but nothing definitively strong enough to effectively stop her family from foolishly believing they were permanently welcomed. Then Prince William discovered the secret draft. William asked his aging father a tough, incredibly revealing question about the future. What officially happens when you are no longer standing here? The dangerous trustee trap was completely uncovered. A deceptively simple question from the direct heir completely disrupted the entire, carefully arranged backroom deal. William explicitly realized that after Charles's inevitable departure, the ongoing, highly privileged access for Camilla's family would absolutely no longer be a simple personal favor from a deeply loving husband. It would instantly become a heavy, highly restrictive legal obligation for the incoming king. Prince William was absolutely not willing to ever accept that specific duty. The royal betrayal was fully complete, and Camilla was completely stunned.